Hello and welcome to Chapter 8, Managing Database Storage. In this chapter, we are going to describe how table raw data stored in blocks, create, drop and manage table spaces, view table spaces and data file information by using Oracle Dictionary views. How table raw data is stored. When a table is created, a segment is created to hold the table data. A table space contains a collection of segments. So each table or each index is created has one and only one segment unless it is a cluster or partition table or index. In partition table or partition index, each partition has its dedicated segment. So the table or index map to a segment. The segment is stored in a table space. So the table space is a container or collection of segments, which is physically operating system database files. The table space physically a group of database files that stored the actual data comes from the tables and indexes. When you create table index, a segment will be created. A segment is also contains one or more than one extent, and the extent has multiple Oracle database blocks. The size of Oracle database blocks selected during database creation by default. It can be 2K, 4K, 8K, 16K or 32 kilobyte. Logically, a table contains rows of column values. A row is stored in a database block in the form of something called row piece. So the records of the table stored in the Oracle database block by something called row piece. It's called by row piece because the row size might be greater than the block size. So it's divided into pieces and stored in Oracle database blocks. So Oracle database block contains multiple rows or can contain row piece belong to one row. This depends on the size of the row. So when you try to insert a record or a row that is too large to fit into a single block, or when an update causes an existing row to outgrow the available free space of the current block, a row piece will be used to store the record or to store the row into multiple Oracle database blocks. The hierarchy of Oracle database block. The Oracle database block contains three sections: the header, the raw data. This is called raw data, which is the actual data comes from the insert update operations. This is the header of the record, and this is the free space. This is the free space. The header grows downward from the top, and the raw data grows upward from the bottom. The block header contains some information like, for example, segment type. Is this block belong to a segment, table segment or index segment? The address of the block, the checksum if you are enabling a checksum, and some other information. Any database is created from scratch. It comes with built-in table spaces or predefined table spaces. The first table space, which is system table space. The system table space is used by Oracle server to manage the database. It contains Oracle data dictionary tables. If you remember Oracle data dictionary tables, which discuss in managing database instance. So Oracle data dictionary tables is stored in system table space and owned by sys user. Sysaux table space or auxiliary table space to the system table space. Auxiliary table space stores tables related to some components, like for example, if you enabling Oracle database vault, Oracle database vault tables and indexes stored under sys auxiliary table space. If you have, for example, 11G database and you enabling Oracle Enterprise Manager, Oracle Enterprise Manager data and tables also stored in sys auxiliary table space. So it is an auxiliary table space to the system table space. Temp table space or the temporary table space is used when you execute a SQL statement that needs the creation of a temporary segment. For example, large sort or creation of an index. Such SQL statements needs a temporary segment which is held in the temporary table space. Each user has a default temporary table space as well as a default table space. Undo TBS or undo table space. This is a undo table space used by the database server to store undo information comes from the transactions. Each transaction generates an original data. This original data is stored as undo information inside undo segments within the undo table space. We will later on talk about undo table space in later chapters. Users table space. This table space is used to store user tables and indexes segments. If no default table space is specified when a user is created, the user's table space is assigned as a default table space for that user. So any created tables or indexes, the segments of these tables and indexes will goes by default to user's table space. Example table space, which is an optional table space in case you create a sample schemas during database creation. Example table space will be created and it will be used to hold tables and indexes for the sample schemas like HR user or E user, sales history user, and so on. As a best practice, don't use system auxiliary table spaces to store application tables and indexes or to store users tables and indexes. Creating a new table space using database express, go to storage tab, Tablespaces option, and then click create. When you click create table space wizard displayed. Specify the name of the table space, maximum 30 characters. Specify the table space type. Table space type can be either permanent, temporary, or undo table space. If you plan to create an undo table space or a new undo table space, choose undo. If you plan to create a new temporary table space, choose temporary. If you plan to create a table space to hold application tables and index data, create permanent table space. Set as default option. Set as default option means make this table space as a default table space for the database. So in case you create a user without specifying a default table space for that user, test TBS will be the default table space for that user. So this means by using test underscore TBS as a default table space for the database. The table space can be either big file table space or small file table space. The default is a small file table space. Big file table spaces are used with extremely large databases. The big file table space can have only one data file, while in small file table spaces, the table space can have many data files up to 1022 data file. Table space status can be either online or offline. Online means the users can read and write to the table space after it is created. Means he can create tables and indexes into this table space. Table space physically at the operating system level or at the storage level, it has one or more than data file. A table space must have at least one data file. In the add data file section, specify the location of the data file and the name of the data file. In our example, we specify /01 app oracle or data orcl, which is the default location of the database files, and we select test underscore tbs01.dbf as the file name. Once you specify the location, click plus and the file will be added at the file name list. In the file size section, specify the size or the initial size of the file, which is in our case 120 megabyte. If the file it's already exists at the operating system level, you can check this box, reuse existing file. The data file can be either auto extend on or auto extend off. Auto extend on cause the data file to extend automatically each time it runs out of space. Initial size of the file 120 mega, so each time the data file runs out of the space, the file will be incremented by 200 megabyte. Maximum file size, it can be either a fixed value or unlimited. Fixed value, for example, 10 giga means this is the upper limit of the data file. The data file cannot be increased more than 10 giga. If even it is unlimited, the maximum size, which is 4 million multiplied by the block size, in case if it is 8K, that means you cannot reach more than 32 gigabyte. 32 gigabyte. So even it is unlimited, the maximum size of the file will be 32 gigabyte in case the block size is 8 kilobyte. When you click next, there is two options here. A block size, which is the block size of the table space. By default, it takes the same block size of the database, in our case 8 kilobyte. Extent allocation, it can be either automatic or uniform. Automatic means the size of the extent in the table space are system managed. Oracle, by using internal algorithm, specify the size of extents in the table space. So when you create a table, the table allocates segments. Segments contains extents. When you start inserting in the table, data will goes into segments, which is a collection of blocks. When the extent become full, the segment will allocate a new extent. So how Oracle determine the size of this extent? Either by two algorithms, automatic or uniform. Automatic means Oracle will, by internal algorithm, specify the size of the new extent to be allocated to the extent segment. Uniform means you have specify a fixed value, for example 5 mega. So each time the segment needs more extents, a 5 mega extent will be allocated to the segment. Each time the segment needs a space, a 5 mega extent will be allocated to the segment. That's meant by extent allocation. In the logging page, you can specify either logging or no logging. The default is logging. If logging is not enabled or turned off, any direct loads using SQL loader or direct load insert operation are not written to the read log files. So the objects are unrecoverable in the event of data loss. If you enable force logging at the database level, this will overwrite the value of the table space level. Last thing in creating a table space, which is the segment options. In segment options, there are two options here: segment space management, automatic or manual, and compression. In segment space management, it's either auto or manual. Automatic means Oracle database server uses bitmaps to manage the free space in segments. Use a bitmap to manage the free space in segments. So during insert operation and update operation, how Oracle knows that this block has a free space for insert and update? By using a bitmap. Has a free space or does not have a free space? So it is a bitmap. Has a free space or does not have a free space. And this bitmap will update it if the block no longer has a free space for insert and update operation. Manual means Oracle will track the used space and the free space in the blocks of the segments by using something called a free list, which is tables inside the data dictionary. Oracle recommend to use automatic segment space management, and this is the default. Last thing, which is the compression. Compression, the default is none. You can go with basic compression or OLTP compression. Last thing, during creating a new table space, you can click Show SQL to view the full SQL statement for creating the new table space. Once finished, you can click OK to create the table space. Creating a new table space using SQL Plus. To create a table space using SQL Plus, first of all, you have to connect as a user, sysdba, or a user that has privileges to create a table space. Once you connected to the database by using SQL Plus, you can use create table space command, specify the table space name, data file, and then provide the full name and path of the data file, size of the data file, auto extend on or auto extend off, the next increment of the data file, and other options like extent allocation, segment space management, and so on. If your table space no longer needed, you can use Oracle Enterprise Express or using SQL to drop the table space. To drop a table space, select the table space that you want to drop and click the drop option. Here we can drop the contents. Contents means tables, indexes stored, and segments stored inside the table space. Data files, which is dropping the data file at the operating system level. Drop constraints if there is any segments or tables in other table spaces that reference the tables in this table space. This constraint will automatically also be dropped. Managing a table space using Database Express, you can click the table space that you want to manage. Under actions, you can set the status offline, read only, or if it is offline, you can bring it online or writable. Add a new data file. Again, a small file table space can have one or more than data file. You can add a data file as many data files as you want, up to 1022 in case of a small file table spaces. You can set the table space as default, means this is the default table space for the database level. In case you create a user without specifying a default table space for that user, this table space will be used as a default table space for the user being created. Managing table spaces data file using Database Express, you can select the data file that belongs to a specific table space. Under actions, there are three options. You can set status like offline, online, edit, auto extend. You can specify if the data file, for example, auto extend off, you can change it to auto extend on and specify the increment and maximum size. You can also resize the data file. For example, if it is current size is 200 mega, you can resize it to 300 mega. Viewing table space and data files information, you can use Oracle Database Express to view information about table space and data files, or you can use the Oracle Database Dictionary, Oracle Dictionary like DBA underscore table spaces and DBA underscore data underscore files to get information about table spaces and data files. For example, in the first query, we get information about the table spaces, name of the table space, the contents of a table space, which is the type of the table space, permanent, undo, or temporary, extent management, local or dictionary, segment space management, manual or auto from DBA underscore table spaces. This get information about the table space. If you need to get information about the data file that belongs to a table space, you can use DBA underscore data underscore files. Select the table space that the data file belongs to, file name, size of the file, if it is auto extend on or off, and so on from DBA underscore data files. This is the list of data files we have for our database. Last thing in this chapter, which is Oracle Managed File or OMF. Oracle Managed File eliminate the need for you to directly manage the operating system files in an Oracle database. You deal with Oracle files as database objects. In order to use Oracle Managed File, there are three parameters. The first parameter, which is db create file dist, this will be used for Oracle data files and temporary files. db create online log dist, this will be used for read logs. You can specify destination 1 and destination 2. db recovery file dist, this will be used for archives and backups. So in our case, we are setting the first parameter, which is alter system set db create file dist. You specify a location. This is the location in case you create a data file or a temporary data file. After setting the parameter, we use a create table space command. Create table space, name of the table space. As we can see, we don't specify data file and then name of the location of data file and the name of the data file and so on. we just specify create tablespace test underscore dbs. So Oracle will automatically go to this location and create your data file. The data file will be system managed, or OMF, system managed data file. The name of the data file will be system managed. The default size of the data file will be 100 megabyte. If you need to specify more than 100 megabyte, you can use a syntax like create tablespace, name of the tablespace, then data file size 200 mega. Again, we don't specify operating system path and a file name. Oracle managed file will automatically go to the location specified in db create file dist and create a file system generated with size 200 megabyte. The same thing applied to the other parameters. The second parameter will be used for read or log files. The last parameter used for archive and backup files, which is the fast recovery area destination. In this chapter, we learn how table raw data is stored in Oracle database blocks. We see how to create, drop, and manage table spaces. And last thing, we view tablespace and data file information using Oracle Data Dictionary or using Oracle Database Express. In the practice, we will see how to create a new table space and how to view information about table spaces and data files using Oracle Database Express or using SQL Plus by query Oracle Data Dictionary views. I hope this video was informative for you and thank you for watching.